Nancy Grace, or as I call her, Nancy Disgrace. I'm not going to call her Nancy Grace anymore because Disgrace is a more appropriate name for her. And I started calling her that many years ago after the Benoit stuff, which I'll talk about in a second. She did a report. It was a Tuesday night or Wednesday. It would have been Wednesday night, I guess. It was very shortly after the news broke that he had died. And she, of course, had to jump right on top of it, another dead wrestler. So she does a report on her show, which is on HLN, basically a network, and a show that really is watched by almost no one. And I didn't watch it. I didn't want to watch it. She is a vile, repulsive woman. I have no interest in watching her whatsoever. And I had no plans on doing it until people started tweeting me and sending me messages saying, oh my God, she said Owen Hart, died of steroids. And I thought to myself, what? That's not possible. She couldn't have said that. And in her defense, she did not actually say that. But when people started mentioning Owen Hart and stuff like that, I said, okay, I got to watch this now. So I find the segment on YouTube. It's like an 8-minute clip. I don't even know if it was the complete segment. If it wasn't, I'm sure it was most of it. And right off the bat, rumors of steroids and illegal drug use swirling. She stuck to this script multiple times during this 8-minute segment. No less than 3 or 4 times. She said the exact same words. Rumors of steroids and illegal drug use are swirling. The guy's been dead for, what, a day? I don't see rumors of illegal drug use and steroids swirling. Look, I admit, the first thought that popped in my head when I heard the Warrior drop dead was, it was the years of steroids. Clearly the guy was jacked to the gills for most of his career, way more so than a lot of other wrestlers were, and it would be a fair assumption to make that after all those years of doing all the shit that I'm sure he and everybody else did, it caught up with him, and we're going to find out that he had an enlarged heart, or something to that effect, because we've heard this so many times before. How many wrestlers have dropped dead or had heart attacks in their 40s, in their 50s, and we hear the same thing over and over again? That was just the first thought that popped in my head. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll find out it was a complete freak thing, it was a stroke, who knows? But sure, that was the first thought that came in my head. You can make that assumption by looking at an old photo of the Ultimate Warrior. I'm sure the average person would look at that and not be surprised that this guy dropped dead at a young age. But to say that, rumors of illegal drug use are swirling, I don't see rumors swirling about anything. The only thing that's swirling is my vomit at the bottom of the tidy bowl by having to sit here and listen to this woman ramble on and on. And it brought me back to all those years ago when I used to watch that show when they would have all the wrestlers on to talk about the Benoit stuff, from Mark Merrow to Steve Blackman to Fit Finlay and everybody else, and it would drive me up a fucking wall. Because this woman clearly doesn't have a fucking clue what she's talking about. Not a clue. To illustrate how greatly in tune with the wrestling industry this woman is. Apparently, according to this report, the Warrior was a top WWE superstar at the time of his death. Did you know that? Did you know that he was a top star in the company when he passed away? I didn't know that. At one point, she even referred to him as Ultimate. As though that was his first name. And what's worse is this list of wrestlers. So, on the screen, they have a list of wrestlers who died young. Presumably from steroid or drug abuse. Okay, that's the presumption. Owen Hart is on this list. How did Owen Hart die? He fell from the ceiling in an accident. I have never heard Owen Hart's name not one time linked to drugs, to steroids. I mean, I can't say he never did them. I don't know. But I've never heard his name linked to any of that kind of stuff. He fell in a stunt and he died in the ring. He's on the list. Mark Curtis, whose name I recognized. Okay? Brian Hildebrand, that was his real name. But he was referee Mark Curtis in WCW, and he worked other places as well. He died from stomach and bowel cancer many years ago, and they used to have the tribute shows in his honor after he passed away. Nothing to do with steroids or drugs, or anything nefarious or evil or suspect or anything like that. He's on the list. Apparently Joey Morello was on the list as well. I didn't catch his name on there. But apparently he was on that list, and that was also an accident. He fell asleep at the wheel of his car on the New Jersey Turnpike after a long TV taping. I think actually Harvey Whippleman was in the passenger seat, but he was buckled in, and so that saved his life. But it was a freak accident. He fell asleep at the wheel of his car and he died. Nothing to do with drugs, nothing to do with steroids that we know of. So what it looks to me is her staff lifted a list from the website about.com. As I did some searching, and there's a list on there very, very similar to the one that they put on TV. There may have been some minor differences, but for the most part, it looks like somebody who works on her show, maybe an intern or something, went on Google. They found this list of young wrestlers who died young, or wrestling people who died young, and they said, okay, let's put this on TV, paying no attention to some of the names on the list. And everybody, all the wrestlers, everybody who has seen this is just furious about it. And they all say the same thing, that Nancy Grace, because it's her show. I don't care who put the list on TV. It's your fucking show. Your name is on the show. And so she should own up to it. She should apologize to their families. It was a really shitty thing for them to do, to include those people, kind of lump them in that same category. And I agree, 100%. DDP was on the show. She was his guest, his big wrestling guest on the show. And I'm watching this and I'm going, why would DDP even agree to go on this woman's show? And when the segment was over, he posted a statement on his Facebook page. It said, I went on Nancy Grace last night expecting to discuss Warrior the Man. Had I known the only topic discussed would be steroids, I would not have participated. At the time, I was also unaware of the list that was shown to the viewing audience. To imply that all of the wrestlers on that list died from steroids was wrong, and for that they owe the families an apology. Again, my only intention was to discuss Warrior the Man and share some stories about how dedicated he was to the wrestling business. I am saddened that was not what happened, and my thoughts remain with his family. So, it was an ambush. I'm sure he feels really bad about it, but still, look, he's a wrestler. I'm not. Even I know that if Nancy Grace comes calling, they want a wrestler on their show for a story like this, they're not having you on, dude, to talk about the guy's life. They don't give a fuck about the guy's life. Shouldn't that be obvious? And I see people are circulating this petition on like MoveOn.org and other websites, and there's like 15,000, 20,000 signatures trying to get Nancy Grace removed from the air. You're wasting your time, people. I'm not promoting a petition. I'm not doing anything like that because it serves no purpose. Petitions, these kind of petitions on the internet, the only thing they do is they get these people to laugh and point and mock you. They don't accomplish anything. However, if you want to try to make an impact of some kind, if it really does bother you and you want to get them to apologize, you're not going to get her kicked off the air. But if you want to try to make some kind of difference, if you want to make your voices heard, don't circulate a petition. The easiest way, there's two things you could do. First of all, you can tweet her. You can tweet, it's the official Twitter account for the show. I'm sure a lot of people have already done this, but if you want to, send them a message and let them know how you feel. You can send a tweet to @NancyGraceHLN. That's the Twitter handle. But I'll do you one better. If you want to really make it very clear how you feel about this in a respectful, polite way, okay, I'm not saying to call these people up and start cursing them on the phone. But if you want to make your voice heard, one of the best things you can do is call the show directly. And the phone number to do that is 404-827-1500. That is the direct line, not for her, but that's the direct line for her show at the network. 404-827-1500. Let them know how you feel. Let them know that it's not right, and let them know that they owe people an apology for what they did. Because it was a really scumbag thing for them to do. Enough with the petitions and all this other stuff. It's not going to do anything. You got to contact them directly and let them know how you feel. Tweet them or call them. That's the easiest way. But what I really wish would happen here, and I feel for DDP, he fell right into the trap. A lot of other people have done that before. I wish all wrestlers would agree not to appear on this woman's show. It doesn't have to be a formal thing where every wrestler comes together. It can be a very informal understanding that if Nancy Grace's show or any of those HLN shows come calling, let the answering machine pick it up. Let it go to voicemail. Or just pick up and say no. Get lost. And hang up. Okay? Look at Barry Bonds in Major League Baseball. Barry Bonds was probably the greatest hitter of this generation, maybe of any generation. And he was breaking all kinds of records, and the home run record, and everything that guy did. And rumors of steroid use with him were swirling. You talk about swirling. Those rumors with Barry Bonds were there for years and years and years. And everything all came unraveled, and a lot of those guys paid a very heavy price for doing steroids or being perceived to have done steroids. The Mitchell report came out. There was a lot of stuff that went down in baseball without me getting into all that stuff. But Barry Bonds was still, in a lot of ways, at the peak of his career. He was still putting up monster numbers, but he was also the most hated man in baseball at that time. This goes back many years ago when everything kind of bubbled up to the surface. And I think it was in 2007 or 2008, he was on the San Francisco Giants, and the Giants confirmed they were not going to bring him back for the following season. And so he filed for free agency, and his agent was all confident, there's going to be a ton of interest from every major league team. Who wouldn't want to have Barry Bonds on their team? This guy is the greatest player of all time. And much to his chagrin, nobody was interested in Barry Bonds. Nobody signed Barry Bonds. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with him. The guy was essentially, unofficially, blackballed from baseball. And it's because, and I have no doubt in my mind, that all of the owners for all 30 teams had an understanding that we're not going to sign this guy. That doesn't mean that they all hopped on a conference call and conspired and specifically said, we are not going to sign this guy. There was an understanding there. This guy is untouchable. We don't want to have anything to do with him. And I wish that the wrestlers would have that same kind of understanding when it came to shows like this. They don't have to come together. They just have to be smart enough to realize that, I know it's probably very tempting. You go on television, you get your face on TV, and you get yourself out there. Nothing good can come from going on this woman's show. Nothing good can come from having anything to do with this creature. So just leave the creature alone and let them crawl away. That's the best thing that you could do. Now, Bonds, I think Bonds actually is now, I think the Giants actually just brought him in as an instructor for spring training this year. That would be the first thing I think Barry Bonds has had anything to do with baseball in like 6, 7, 8 years. It took that long for somebody to finally bring him in some kind of role. But I used the Barry Bonds example as a good example of what I wish wrestlers would do. I wish they would do the same thing. Have an understanding that, listen, this is not going to serve any good purpose for us. It's not going to serve any good purpose for wrestling to go on this show. And it all goes back to her coverage of the Benoit story back in 2007. Okay? Talking about how Benoit may have been depressed over being demoted from the Four Horsemen to ECW. This is what she said. Being demoted from the Horsemen to ECW. I mean, I must have been really out of the loop at that time because I had no idea. And that Jane Velez Mitchell woman who would fill in for her sometimes in some of those shows, another so-called journalist, another piece of garbage. I mean, these people are just awful. Okay, they're awful. They're awful human beings, and I just wish people would stay the hell away from them. There's nothing good that can come from going on their shows. Nobody watches their shows anyway. And if they come calling, again, they're not looking to promote what a wonderful person that XYZ dead wrestler was. Okay, fill in the blank dead wrestler was. They don't give a shit. They have an agenda, and I wish people would stay the hell away from them.